Now, there are 5 factors that have helped me a lot when it comes to learning a new language. That is intention, having a clear goal, having a plan, micro habit, and avoiding comparisons. In this video, we're going to go through all of these factors one by one, starting with having a clear intention. If you want to learn a new language, you need to have a very clear intention and a strong motivator. I know this from personal experience because last year, my New Year's resolution was to learn French, and I posted this video. And I'm a little bit nervous to share this with you all because if I share this here, I have to commit to it. But I want to learn French and I'm going to finally do it this year. How long do you think that lasted? I studied French for about 3 months and I gave up because it was a burden to study French. I didn't really want to visit France all that much and I don't even really have French friends. So every time I sat down with my tutor or I started studying grammar, I would think, why am I doing this? I'm wasting my time studying a language that I'm really not all that interested in. My intention simply wasn't strong enough, and I understand that now because recently I was listening to a podcast episode by the Diary of a CEO, and Stephen Bartlett was interviewing a CIA agent. And this agent was sharing this kind of framework that shows how to really motivate a person.
And there are a series of processes, a number of processes that we learned that had to do with, remember how we talked about manipulation and motivation are two sides of the same coin? When you understand all the different options of the currency that you're working with, you can work with it more effectively. People have 4 basic motivations, and we call those 4 basic motivations RICE, R-I-C-E, stands for reward, ideology, coercion, and ego.
So in order for me to explain that framework to you, I'm going to go to my whiteboard. So in simple terms, RICE is a framework used by the CIA to understand how to deeply motivate people. And why am I telling you about this? Because we're going to use this framework to find our true intention and to find a really strong intention in order to learn our target language. So starting off with R. So R is for reward. And an example of this is when I said, when I learn French, I'm going to give myself a trip to France. That was one of my goals and one of my supposed motivators to learn French, well, to continue studying French, was because I was going to give myself a solo trip to France. It sounds great, right? But it's not a strong enough motivator. Also, that's like a really broad goal. So when was I going to take this solo trip to France? I don't know. What level was I gonna achieve, or what was I gonna do in order to be able to become fluent in French to go to France? I don't know. So not a clear enough goal, guys. Don't make the mistake I did and learn a language for a reward, some obscure reward. The second one is ideology. I want you guys to think of organizations like religions where people have different beliefs or different rituals and they uphold certain rules because that goes with their ideology, their religious ideology. So this is a really strong motivator. C is for coercion. And coercion is when you do something because you're being manipulated into it. So for example, my girlfriend says that she's going to break up with me if I don't learn English, so I need to take English classes. That's manipulation, and that's not a really good way to learn a language. So E is for ego, and that is when a habit, a ritual, or an ability influences how we see ourselves. So let me give you an example from my life. So if I think about why I wanted to learn Spanish so bad and why I studied so hard to have like a native level, is because I'm Mexican American. And I always thought to myself, how can I be so proud of my roots and of my family for being Mexican American, but I can't even speak the language? So for me, learning Spanish was an ego thing. I wanted to identify as a Mexican person, and so in order to do that, I felt like I had to speak the language. So if you're trying to learn a language because you want a reward or because you're being coerced, those are not strong reasons to learn a language. Those are not strong motivators. I want you to try to shift your perspective for an ideological reason or for an ego reason. So try to shift your perspective and think about, how can I make language learning a part of my identity, either through ego or through your ideology? Do you naturally think that people who are multilingual have better opportunities? Do you think that they're more intelligent? They have more possibilities in the world? Or do you have an ego reason, like I need to consider myself an English speaker, I'm an international professional? So I want you to try to shift your perspective to touch on either ideology or ego. Forget about coercion and forget about these short-term goals that are super broad, because that's not a real motivator for you to learn your target language. And once you have a really strong intention, it's time for you to create a clear plan. This plan is going to be your roadmap for the next months to year that it's going to take you to learn a language. First, I want you to set a goal. What is your overarching goal for learning a language? Do you simply want to learn how to have a basic conversation? Or are you aiming for fluency so that you can go live in a different country and live comfortably there? Set a clear and realistic target. Like by the end of the month, I want to be able to hold a 10-minute conversation. Or I want to be able to meet 2 new people and have a conversation with them on my next trip to Spain in 6 months. Also, this plan should include all skills. I mean, listening, reading, writing, speaking, because you can't leave any skill behind. Even if you think, okay, but I'm not going to read in my target language, this will help you to understand the grammar and learn new words. So don't skip over any skill. Make sure that you're practicing in your study plan every single piece of the language learning puzzle. At the end of the day, all of these skills will connect to make you fluent. Also, you need to learn how to actually study. I want you to think of language learning as a craft. So you have to learn how to study effectively, different study techniques, how you learn, which if you want to watch my video about how you can understand your learning style, I will link it right here. But this all plays a role in language learning, how you learn, how you study, and it's a craft. So I want you to read books like Fluency Forever to understand how the brain actually acquires languages, because this is going to help you understand how you should set up your study plan and make it right for you. And finally, don't be afraid to take breaks. Learning burnout is real. That's why in school we have like summer break and we have spring break, because we need to give our brains a rest. If you're feeling exhausted or stuck, just give yourself a rest and don't force it. And try to remember while you're learning in the first place to keep your passion for the language alive. And now that you have a plan, it's time for you to build micro habits into your routine so that you can move closer to your goal. You can use your routine to your advantage, like I did when I was working at Pizza Hut. When I was on my lunch break, I would review flashcards, or I would watch videos in Spanish. I would even do like quizzes on apps like Duolingo, just to take advantage of that hour or 30 minutes in order to practice my language. When you're waiting in line, review some flashcards. While you're commuting, listen to a podcast. You have a slow minute at work, read an article in your target language. And please, practice speaking from day 1. Even if you feel shy or ashamed, try to speak with people, people in your class, find a tutor, or even record yourself speaking, practice shadowing, but anything that can get your mouth used to speaking that new language is better, because if you do that from the beginning, you're going to advance so much more quickly and you're going to be able to speak sooner than you think. Speaking consistently, even if it's just a few minutes a day, will make a huge difference with time. Also, contact is everything. Try to have as much contact with your target language as possible. Use apps like Lingota to find a language buddy. If you're an English learner, you can come practice with me and my students from around the world. Integrate the language into your life by watching series, listening to podcasts, reading books. Put your phone in your target language. Practice with vocabulary flashcards. Anything you can do to have contact with the language will help you. And finally, avoid the comparison trap. Don't compare yourself to native speakers. I used to think that in order to sound fluent when I spoke Spanish, I had to use like slangs, obscure slangs that were used in Mexico, or that I had to speak really fast or else I would sound dumb, which that's totally not true. And the problem with that mindset, with thinking that you have to speak fast or that you have to use a bunch of slang, is that when you're actually speaking, you're going to be focusing on those details rather than actually being in the moment conversing with the person you're talking to. So I remember that I would try to speak super fast in Spanish and I would end up just stuttering more. Or I would be in my head and I would have tons of mental blocks and I would forget words, or I would say a bunch of words wrong because I was too in my head thinking about speaking perfectly rather than just letting myself practice and be in the moment. So that means I want you to focus on progress and not perfection. Don't compare yourself to native speakers. Don't compare yourself to people who are way ahead of you and who have been studying for years, because that's only going to hurt yourself in the long run. If you're showing up for yourself and practicing every day and getting better over time, that's all that matters. Once I got over perfectionism and thinking that I had to be perfect and that I had to be fluent in Spanish, that's when I really started improving. Remember, fluency comes from consistency, not from perfection. So once you start to focus on consistency and enjoying the process, that's when you fall in love with the language and you really start to improve. For all you English learners out there, that's why I created M Languages Academy, because I want to give you a safe space to practice your English and to have a plan for you to improve and progress over time. We don't focus on perfection, we focus on helping you develop confidence in English. Most importantly, be patient with yourself and enjoy the process. Learning a new language is both frustrating and satisfying. What topic do you want me to talk about in the next video? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, give it a like, go subscribe to my channel, and go watch this video because I think you'll like it.